If you've been in the MBTI community for a while, you'll know that there's a lot of confusion and conflict over what is right or wrong in terms of personality typology.
So it's actually kind of a longer question, but I think it's important to share the depth or the context of the question.
Crap. Ironically, when I was alive, I was invisible even when I didn't want to be. All my friends are gonna love you.
I'm gonna make a lot of people angry with this one. I want to start off first by prefacing this video with a disclaimer that it's not meant as a personal attack against people within the personality typology related communities, and nor is it a personal attack on any one person alone. As you can probably tell by the title and thumbnail of this video, I have some things to say about personality typology, and for those who aren't as deeply embedded into this stuff as I am, I make the distinction between typology and psychology for a reason that I might get into later. As for typology itself, there are some really fascinating things that one can learn from personality typology about themselves. And no, I'm not referring to astrological signs or horoscopes. That's a potential topic for another video. No, I'm talking about typing systems, such as those related to Jungian cognitive functions, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the Big Five test, socionics, and the Enneagram. These are the types of personality systems that make you sit down and go, did I really just mow through 5 online tests to figure out which 4-letter type code or fancy number I am? At first glance, most people would look at stuff like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, or MBTI for short, and take a lot of issue with the simple dichotomies of introversion versus extroversion, thinking versus feeling, etc. However, I want to try and provide some explanations as to why these systems are not only more than just a 4-letter type code, but also provide some insight into why some people have adopted it as part of their self-identification. However, I'll also dive a bit into just some of the problems that have arisen because of this phenomena and what we can do to try and fix it, assuming it's worth fixing to begin with. Let's start off with probably the single most recognized term from the Myers-Briggs system, the 4-letter code for the INFJ personality type. Most people who are even aware of MBTI are at least aware of this type in particular, and many people tend to lump themselves in with the category and or loathe the idea of being categorized by the categories of introversion, intuition, feeling, and judging. In actuality, the system was built off of the work of the late psychoanalyst and student of Sigmund Freud, known as Carl Jung. The earliest form of the system was a system that called for the 4-letter type code that we recognize today to symbolize a 4-function model, in which a person had access to 4 primary functions in an order that was determined by the type code. For the INFJ, this function stacking is introverted intuition, followed by extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, and lastly, extroverted sensing. Other psychologists and people in and out of the field of psychology have tried to make versions or variations of the system that hold up to scrutiny from the field of psychology, as well as the other fields that hold more to the scientific standard. Fortunately, much of this is manifested in typing systems that come across as philosophical exercises at best, and borderline BuzzFeed grade quiz fodder at worst. Some people tend to believe that the Myers-Briggs system itself is founded within the field of psychology, but that isn't entirely true. To make this point simple, consider it as point 1, the problem of too much deviation. The founders of the MBTI system, that being Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers, were not psychoanalysts and were not traditionally trained in the fields of psychiatry or psychology. Such a system and its foundational roots were built off of the theories of Carl Jung and operate more so as a philosophy and practice than a rigorous system. It wasn't until the American psychologist David Keirsey adjusted the system away from utilizing cognitive functions and the focus on fluid personality traits and fluctuations of conscious energy and awareness that we began to see the tests that many of us recognize today. While MBTI and Big Five tests are often conflated together quite often, the biggest example of this being the infamous 16 personalities test, the former only really gained prominence as a typology indicator after Keirsey and others went and modified the test to prioritize a 2-letter dichotomy rather than the cognitive functions the system was originally created for. And herein lies the main conundrum of personality typology. These systems have undergone so much modification and offshoots that many do not even recognize what Jungian cognitive functions are, or what Carl Jung had intended with such functions in the first place, which leads to the second point. Point 2. People rely too much on random online tests and descriptions of types. Some people will claim to use certain forms of each of the systems, be it MBTI, Socionics, or Enneagram, but each of these systems have their own deviations, which can lead to some people having problems when finding their type and becoming overly invested and distressed. Some people will try to rely on tests or online descriptions to provide them the answer that they're seeking, but to no avail. They end up more confused than before because of it. In trying to find answers, they will often mull through test after test, often retaking them multiple times to try and measure how many times they receive the same results in hope that they will provide some accurate responses. The unfortunate reality of these tests is that many of them are not statistically accurate enough to hold the same results between 2 or more tests over various instances of the test being taken. Worse still is how this statistical inaccuracy emerges primarily due to a shift in mood or life circumstances at the time, providing less expected results. With the inaccuracy of tests and the widespread proliferation of variations on each of these systems, a third problem emerges: typists. Problem 3. The problem of typists. This is typically where self-proclaimed typists of the world will step in to help one find their type. The problem with this is that not every person who claims themselves to be a typist, or better put, a type diagnostician, will be easily swayed when they conclude on what your potential type might be. With such systems as those of Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram, some people may bear stricter interpretations of the systems than others. This can lead to conflicts, both within communities of people dedicated to this stuff, as well as within the person trying to find their own type. Seeing as how some of these typists act as coaches that will sell their services for monetary gain, it can grow incredibly frustrating when someone looks at the amounts being charged just to determine one's 4-letter type code or Enneagram number. Putting the issue aside that, as a counseling student, I find some of these so-called going rates to be downright insulting, there's a deeper-rooted issue than some people promoting inaccurate information for money, which leads into my next point. Point number 4. Personality typology as a lifestyle. This is where things can grow quite messy, as people often don't see how following down this path can often bridge out into forms of online tribal behavior, only this time it's separated out based on whether you're an ESTJ, INFP, EII, ILE, 269, etc. I wish that I could say that it wasn't like this online, but much like with most other communities where boundaries are set, personality typology communities lay out the groundwork for what can sometimes lead to very toxic behavior between people over what are essentially meme-worthy traits that few people would actually demonstrate in an in-person setting. The effects of online discourse on interpersonal barriers might be a worthy topic for another video. For now, I want to address the issue of personality typology as a lifestyle from my personal perspective. I was introduced to personality typology many years ago during high school and grew tired of it within a matter of days. The pressure I felt from others to engage with it drove me to dislike it further. Years later, I came across the typology community again and found myself entrenched within the communities associated with it. I joined with the intent of discrediting such systems due to their proliferation online and further encroachment into the territories of both psychology and psychiatry. In my mind, I felt the need to make a video like this to discredit such systems and attack them for the fraudulent money pits that they were. But over the last year and a half of being involved with these communities, I concluded my findings in a way that I didn't expect to when I joined these communities over a year and a half ago. People who are into typology are usually looking for answers as to who they are and are looking for a sense of direction and community among people who otherwise would never meet. And while this conclusion helped to ease the tension that I had with typology, it did not leave me with an answer that I found acceptable as to what to do with personality typology and the communities that have spawned because of these typing systems. a lot of people still ignore what Carl Jung and the founders of the Enneagram had to say about cognitive personality in the first place, leading to many people adopting labels and fixating on them to an unhealthy degree, myself included. This leads to my concluding point. Point number 5. What to do with these labels. As for what we can do from here, many of the people involved in personality typology that took the plunge beyond the tests and started to dive deep into the communities are likely going to be hard-pressed to unlearn a lot of the tropes and even the definitions of the cognitive functions associated with it. The problems associated with this all remind me of Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality, wherein the topic becomes more real than the reality of it itself. No longer is INFJ a 4-letter code of Jungian cognitive functions. The INFJ has become a living, breathing meme and is talked about by so many popular YouTubers and figures online that it's become the staple interpretation for the label introvert in some cases. The INFJ label is touted around by many YouTubers as being the so-called rarest personality type, and yet there are so many people online who call themselves an INFJ and will argue over their type endlessly. Instead of seeing a label like the INFJ as a descriptor for one to understand themselves better according to the theories of Carl Jung, people have now gone off and created communities surrounding a personality type that is only one of 16 and were created by a mother-daughter duo that had no formal training in psychology or psychiatry. The point of origin of the cognitive functions has become so divorced from the intent of Carl Jung that people ignore core elements of his theory in the first place. Hence, the concept of hyperreality as it relates to personality typology. So, what is to be done? I borrowed this idea from an asexual creator on TikTok. If I remember who it was that brought up this idea, I'll include the video in the description. The core idea of this video was this. If an identity becomes too difficult for us to determine for ourselves to identify with, which is very commonly the case for the descriptions and understandings behind these type systems, the solution to that is to see these labels as something akin to a refrigerator magnet. Rather than trying to personify yourself as an INFJ, try looking at the label of INFJ as a patch that you can stick onto your jacket. You can either wear that jacket all the time or only when you feel like it. And considering how uncomfortable the climate is making everyone right now, I think that this analogy works quite well. In my view, the best way to deal with the extreme internalization of these typing systems and the labels others throw onto us is to push them outwards and to not prioritize them. We prioritize only a select number of things every day anyways. We can't prioritize everyone and everything, so why should we prioritize something that causes us so much discomfort in our journey to understand ourselves, when we could spend more time trying to understand what it is that we're truly after? At the end of the day, I'm no authority on personality typology, nor do I want to pretend that I am one. I'm just a frustrated counseling student who saw this series of systems pushed onto me over a year and a half ago and felt the need to dive deeper into it to dismantle it. That's not the answer that we need to the issues provided by looking at personality typology as a part of our lifestyle. We can still use labels like INFJ, ENFJ, SEI, SEE, and the others associated with these systems as descriptors for ourselves without feeling the need to try and make others feel lesser for it. There's a great amount of variety out there, and 16 special boxes are not enough to cover all of it. So if you're on this journey to find your type, don't sweat it. If people give you crap for it, don't pay them any mind. Consider their opinion discarded. Really, it's only your opinion on what your type that truly matters in a world where this stuff is hardly considered rigorously scientific. It's a philosophical system that was made to help you understand yourself better. So if the type that you resonate with most helps you to understand yourself better, go for it. Until we have a firm enough grasp on the reality of these systems, they'll stay to the very last back burner in the fields of psychology and psychiatry. Even in my field, we're still using a very rudimentary version of the Myers-Briggs type indicator, so why give yourself a hard time over finding your type? So many more important things exist out there, and wasting time trying to determine a type code when you could spend time growing with your friends, family, and loved ones is just not worth it in my opinion. Bottom line, have fun with your life and try to take the journey of finding yourself less seriously. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. If you like these kinds of videos, please do subscribe, leave a like. I am going to be doing more videos like this from here on out in the future. More psychology and philosophy oriented videos in general are coming to this channel, and I've been dying to do this for so long. Please excuse the echo. It's going to be like this for a little while until I can get things better treated. I know some of my audio from the past was a little bit better than this, but due to certain constraints involving my living arrangements, I cannot afford to be able to do better treatment of my audio for now, so please forgive me for that. With that said, if you do want resources on typing and some of the explanations behind why I made the points that I did, I will leave a few video links down in the description below regarding not only typing tests, but also involving finding your type in the first place in some of these systems. So if you're interested in that, please check the description down below. I'm going to have some links there for you to be able to look through if you're interested. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. Take care.